Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called The Power of Surrendering to True Forgiveness: How to Move Past Anger, Regret, and Shame to Make Space for a Life of Freedom and Fulfillment. My name is Stephen Dynam, the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm excited for today for quite a number of reasons, but one of which is that we are in the evolution business. We want people to become free, become their whole selves, and forgiveness is at the core of letting go of what no longer serves, what's holding us back. And we've searched for quite some time to find who's really the best teacher of forgiveness to bring to you. And I feel delighted to be introducing you to Jennifer Hadley. She's the founder of Power of Love Ministry. She's actually been through a mentorship program at Shift, and I've been really impressed with the level of sophistication of understanding the deeper root systems of how do we let things go, not just to sort of like wishing it away, but actually like deeply releasing all the way through. And so we're going to learn some key principles today about how to do that and do practice together. And if you're excited about this, you can go much further in a brand new program with Jennifer called Forgive and Be Free. Reframe your past and experience true forgiveness to activate healing and the miraculous, that we'll share more about towards the end of the hour. So with that said, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so glad to do this with you, Stephen, and I know it's going to bring real benefit to anybody who's watching.
I know. I mean, we've had enough conversations about this. It's really clear just like how much liberation can happen when you really put the principles we're going to talk about today into practice. So let's start our journey today with a little bit about your journey into forgiveness, and really why did you take that journey, and really what propelled you to devote so much of your life to this work?
Well, I have devoted many years, decades to doing this forgiveness work, and it's because of my own benefits and so many others. So I can tell you that when I was a kid, a child, my parents felt like I was an angry child, and I was angry when I was a teenager and into my 20s. And a lot of times I could be aggressive and mean and hurtful to people because I was very defensive. I felt deeply insecure while simultaneously also being very arrogant and pig-headed. And it was a really toxic combination. And through my own inner work, forgiving myself, forgiving all the things in my life, I have been able to totally transform not just my life and my personality, but to really help other people do this work. And having come from feeling really like I was a bad person. And I used to wonder, actually, am I evil? Am I an evil person? Am I just this way and there's nothing that can be done? Am I just going to be sad and angry the rest of my life? And the thing that gave me some brightness was spirituality. So I started reading spiritual books and taking spiritual classes. And that helped me for sure, helped me become a kinder, gentler version of a mean girl, if you can imagine such a thing. But it wasn't enough. And I began to feel like I was hitting a spiritual glass ceiling, if you will. I kept feeling like I should be able to progress more. I should be able to have more of an awakening experience. It's not enough to just be kinder, gentler, but still harboring all these resentments and regrets and things. And it's not enough for me to read all these spiritual books and do things like I became a spiritual counselor. I became an Agape licensed practitioner from the Agape International Spiritual Center. I became a minister, but still I was holding on to things, and I was having a very hard time letting many of them go. So I wanted to find that full freedom and release that I, in my heart, believed had to be possible. And it had to be possible not just for gurus and saints and people who are special. It has to be for everybody, because that seemed to be in all the spiritual teachings that I was reading, that this is available to everyone. Because God is omnipresent, omnipotent. That's the nature of spirit. So it has to be available to everyone. And that sent me on a deep forgiveness journey. And I can tell you, forgiveness is number one. So, I'm a Course in Miracles student and teacher, not just the teachings of Ernest Holmes and Buddha and many other spiritual teachers, but A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles says, forgiveness offers everything you want, everything you want. And I have come to see that that is true. And so I like to help people prove that it really will give you everything you want, everything. It's a big promise, but it's true.
It is a big promise, and I think your life story is a remarkable example of that coming into fruition and the truth of it. So I think it's useful to sort of start with talking about forgiveness with a little bit of an understanding of like why a lot of approaches to forgiveness don't tend to work, because most people aspire to forgiveness or even think it's a good idea, but just get stuck trying to actually implement it.
Yeah, it's such an important and good question, because in A Course in Miracles community, many people will say, oh, you just need to forgive that. Forgive that, and then you'll feel free. But people don't actually teach people how to forgive. And one of the great benefits of my life is working with people who have been through very, very intense emotional, physical, financial, spiritual challenges that are just unbelievably traumatic. To be able to work with them and see how the true forgiveness works has been amazing. So, number one, people often think that forgiveness is simply saying something like, I forgive you. And there's no true forgiveness in that. That I forgive you, I forgive them is really an egoic statement. And it often comes from a place of, you wounded me, you did something horrible to me, you did something awful to me, you've hurt me, you've damaged me. And I, being above you, looking down on you, am going to say, I forgive you from my place on high. And all that is judgment and some kind of righteous reason to still hold on to, you're wrong, you're bad, I'm good, I'm innocent. And that does not give the spiritual release. And so people will say, and I learned this years ago when I first started teaching forgiveness. I was working with someone who had been repeatedly raped by their relative. And they said, I have forgiven this for 2 decades. And yet I just can't seem to get any freedom. I can't. I don't know why. I keep saying, I forgive him, I forgive him, I forgive him. Why can't I get free of it? And I knew instantly in that moment was because she wasn't willing to let go of her opinion about what happened.
Hmm.
And holding on to the opinion that they're bad, they're evil, they're wrong, I'm innocent, I'm good, and they should be punished. They couldn't get to true forgiveness until they gave up needing to punish the person and needing to judge them and complain about them. There's just no relief until we're willing to move into a place of, this is what happened. I don't like it. I wish it didn't happen. And I'm not interested in holding it with complaints anymore. So I would like to let all the privileges of my complaints go. I'm willing to say, I don't know what this is for. This is part of my karmic journey. Didn't enjoy it, not enjoying it, but I am willing to say there's something good in this for me, and I'd like to accept it right now and not push the good that's encoded into it away from me one more minute. And when people snap into that consciousness of there has to be something good in this for me and I will receive it now, then everything starts to change. And that's usually, it takes a process. And sometimes it takes a process that's an hour. Sometimes it takes a process that's a few weeks or a couple of months. But when you know what to do, you can get there quicker than you ever imagined.
It's interesting. So as part of what you're saying is that the condescension aspect is a kind of punishment. We're kind of reenacting a punishment by our superiority, and then we're getting gratification from that superior standpoint, but that actually doesn't allow us to really learn or receive what the blessing of that was. That's really interesting. So how do you square this with, I mean, I'm sure people escalate this to like, well, how do you, do this with, pedophilia or, Nazi war crimes or things like we tend to go to like the more and more escalated versions of like that has to be seen as truly horrific and unexcusable. Like how do you navigate that when we sort of go to the next levels of trauma or really terrible, difficult things that happen?
Right. Yeah, it's an important thing to understand. So I'll give you an example. A friend of mine was a sign language interpreter, right, for the deaf. And he, for 2 years, went to weekly meetings to support pedophiles. And it was, I think, a court-ordered group that they had to go to, a counseling group. And my friend told me that every single person in the group had been sexually abused as a child. So if you knew that every pedophile had been sexually abused as a child, or most of them, that they had something horrific and traumatic that happened to them that they hadn't been able to unhook in their mind. And they felt compelled to act it out, even though they didn't want to, even though they felt terrible about themselves and punished themselves internally for their whole adult life, let's say. If you knew all of that, would you be able to have some compassion? Would you be able to say to that person in your mind, I don't want to judge you anymore because I don't really know what you've been through. I don't really know what's going on inside of you. Because let's face it, Stephen, every single one of us has done things from a place of being compulsive, right? Where we knew it was not the right thing to do. We knew it was not the healthy thing to do, smart thing to do, but we did it anyway. We all have things like that in our life, every single one of us. For one person, it's they ate the whole bag of cookies. For another person, it's they keep sleeping with somebody that they know doesn't like them, and is using them. There's all kinds of ways that we have done things from that place of dysfunction. And to judge other people who've done things from their place of dysfunction does not support our happiness and our loving heart and our ability to be receptive to the good in this world. Because I think deep down, especially every spiritual student knows that our number one job in this world is to be loving and compassionate, even with the people who have no love and compassion for us. We still are being called to be loving and compassionate with them. And when we hold on to resentments, then we can't be in our loving heart. And we know it deep down. And that's the thing that bothers us so much. It bothers us actually more than what happened. Our inability to stay in our loving heart is more upsetting to us than what happened.
It's a really interesting point. And I know that in previous conversations, you've really focused a lot on self-forgiveness, that's a piece that tends to get dropped out where we get very focused on the other and what they did or didn't do. So maybe share a little bit more about why that's really foundational to like real authentic forgiveness.
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because for a lot of people, it's hard to wrap their mind around it until it is explained to them. So many people, especially all parents, feel a certain amount of guilt and a certain amount of shame. I have yet to meet any parents that don't have regret and guilt and shame, because parenting is incredibly difficult. It triggers all your unhealed stuff, and it is filled with one mind, what do you call it? It's like a minefield, right? For people, especially people who are like many of the spiritual students that we meet, people who are much better parents than their parents, people who are really interested in being the most loving parents they can be and transforming what they've inherited from their ancestry. So when we are having these episodes of guilt and shame and regret, and you don't have to be a parent, I'm not a parent, but we all have episodes of regret and shame and guilt that we're working through. So the fast way to get through them is through forgiving ourselves. So what I like to do with people is, let's really look at it. Let's look at it honestly and transparently. And if you had known better, you would have done better. To just walk people through the decision making that they had at the time, and now what are the judgments that they're holding against themselves now, that really, are they necessary? Are they helpful? Because one of the things that we've all been trained to do is to judge ourselves, to keep ourselves from behaving badly, right? So we talk ourselves out of having that, whatever it might be, having that cocktail, having that cigarette, having, spiritual students have so many things that we label as bad. And so there's this whole thing that we do, judging ourselves. If you do that, you're not really spiritual. If you do that, you're not a good person. And so we many times then feel compelled to do those things to prove we don't believe we're a good person, that we're actually a spiritual fake. And we're just pretending to be deeply spiritual. We're just pretending to be a good person. And all of that can get cleared away through the self-forgiveness. This is the stuff that I had to do for myself, because I truly felt like a fake. Here I have all this spiritual information. I've taken all this training and all these books that I've read, all these retreats that I've done with all these spiritual rock stars, and still I'm so far from where I'd like to be. And so I would pretend that I was higher consciousness than I believed myself to be. And I see that in a lot of spiritual students. And that thought that I'm not really as spiritual as I pretend to be, all that inauthenticity, it is a weight that we can let go of through forgiving ourselves for judging ourselves.
Hmm. And so those inauthenticities in ourselves then are part of what keeps the traumas with others from releasing as well, it sounds like.
It's all connected, because here's an example. For instance, I've worked with people that have had their life savings stolen from them. They've been conned out of it, right? They've invested in things that were a scam. And when we drill down into it, we can see that all along their journey with the scammer, they had intuition. This person might be too good to be true. This person might not be real. This person might be trying to take advantage of you. But they didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to think that. They said, no, I want to triple my money. No, I think they really do care about me, because I met them at church and I've known them for years or something like that. And so when they look back on it, they see that they made decisions all along the way that got themselves into that situation. And so when they can forgive themselves for ignoring their guidance, their intuition, when they can, I see you smiling, when we can forgive ourselves for pretending we don't see what we see or feel what we feel. Like when we talk ourselves into believing that person really loves me, when we know deep down they do not. They do not. That we are so desperate for love, for company, that we would prostitute ourselves in some way. You know, there are so many things that people have done that they feel really ashamed of, and they are blaming the other person for tricking them, but they knew they were being tricked at the time and they agreed to it, but they're pretending that's not true, or they don't really want to think about it. And so the whole episode just stays at the sidelines, the periphery. They can see it all day, every day in their consciousness, and it just doesn't go away. And it takes so much energy to manage that stuff.
So when we admit that we've often been duping ourselves, then and we have compassion for that, that starts to free up the whole complex, it sounds like.
It does. It's extraordinary how quickly things can be transformed and let go of. And what's amazing, 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 amazing is how, because there's only one mind, I'm absolutely 100% clear that there's just one mind. We share the one mind, all of us. And so when my mind shifts, the whole mind shifts. So when I forgive myself, then all the repercussions of my self-judgment and everything that occurred, it starts to shift, because when it's shifting in my mind, it absolutely has to transform what's happening in form, right? Because first things generate from the mind into form, right? First there's an idea, there's a thought, and then things come into form. So when we shift our consciousness, then the world of form shifts. So can I give you an example?
Sure.
Yeah. So one of my favorite examples is one of the early people I had an amazing result with. So this is a woman who, her child at the age of 20 disappeared. She consciously left and basically said, I'm not coming back. I'm done with you people. And she left. And for 10 years, her mother did not know where she was. None of the friends, no family, nobody knew how to reach this daughter. And the entire years of from 20 to 30, her mother had no idea. Her parents had no idea what she was doing or where she was, if she was safe, no idea. So she took my class, the mother took my class, and I said to her, you need to forgive yourself. First, you need to forgive yourself. I don't know exactly what for, but you must forgive yourself for whatever. And there's probably a list of 100 or 1,000 things, but you can just start with one thing, whatever that is, that feels like the biggest thing, if you really want to go deep with it. So she did. She did that self-forgiveness work. She dedicated a couple hours, just a couple hours, and she really went into it and did that work. She did exactly what I suggested she do. Not kidding you, within a week, she got an email from her daughter who said, I want to come and visit you. I have a child now, and I would like you to meet your grandson. And then after they met, the daughter said, I'd like to move back and move to be near you so you can be in our lives again.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And I can tell you one of my own experiences with a best friend who got really mad at me because she misinterpreted what I had said. For 4 years, we did not speak. She did not connect with me. This was my best friend in the whole world. No communication for 4 years. Then she took out the last letter that I had written to her, and she reread it. And she saw that I hadn't said what she thought I said, and that what I had said was, I love you, and I can see that you're falling into drug abuse, and I cannot watch you do that, but I can help you stop it. She only heard, get out, get out, get out. I don't love you anymore, which was not in my letter. She reread this letter after 4 years of no communication. She sat down, she wrote me a letter asking for my forgiveness. The same day, I wrote her a letter saying, let's just put the past in the past and get together. Our 2 letters were written on the same days, and they crossed in the mail.
That's
One mind, one mind. I could give you example after example like that.
so basically, because we're all connected on the one mind level, if you're willing to let go of whatever part of the complex is on your side, then it's going to automatically shift something on the other. That's really cool.
And also because we're eternal, it works even if the person passed away.
Mm.
It does.
So let's go back to a little bit more and the how. So I think that we clearly the why is becoming clear and a little bit more of like the deeper dimensions of like the self-forgiveness. But what is the actual how of the release? When you say a woman sat down and did 2 hours of self-forgiveness work, what is the structure of the process you lead people on?
So the number one overarching aspect of the work that we do is, and this is the challenging part, to get there. But once you realize how powerful it is, it's easy to get there. But we have to take responsibility for our part in what happened. We have to take responsibility for participating in some way. So, for example, the mother had to take responsibility for saying and doing things that pushed her daughter away. She had to take responsibility. With someone who has been molested as a child, hurt as a child by a caregiver or a stranger, they have to take responsibility for judging themselves that they should have done something differently. Because children are not responsible for being molested ever, 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 right? Of course not. However, children grow up thinking they should have done something differently. They grow up thinking, I shouldn't have let him take me for ice cream. I shouldn't let him buy me those dresses. I shouldn't have sat on his lap. I shouldn't have said yes to getting in the car, or whatever it was. And so they have to forgive themselves for thinking they're to blame.
Hmm.
And once they can start to take responsibility that they've been holding themselves in a prison of their mind, then they can start to undo the prison. And it kind of melts away. Most of the time, the speed with which it occurs is remarkable. For some people, their personality and their life is so built around being a victim, it can take longer to unwind it. But if there is a willingness, that's all that's required. So it's the willingness to take responsibility, catch this, only for the meaning they made of it, for the interpretation of it. Like, these things happened to me. I married somebody who cheated on me and who lied to me. We don't have to take responsibility for their abuse, but we do have to take responsibility for how we interpreted it. That we decided it means I'm not a worthy person. I don't deserve love. That I'm a victim and I'm always going to be a victim, or however we've interpreted. So I have very specific processes to help people unhook that judgment in their mind. And one of the most common things we do is we project onto other people, it's their fault, they made me do it. It's their fault, they did it to me, I'm a victim. But nobody who feels like a victim feels good.
Hmm.
And as long as we tell ourselves, I'm a victim, we are never going to experience real joy, real peace, real happiness.
Mm.
Because as spiritual beings, we can't ever actually be a victim, no matter how it looks.
Very key points. Well, I could keep asking questions going to different nuances of this, but I know we also want to take people into an experience of this themselves. So I think this would be a great time to dive into that.
Yes, good. So I'm glad you're here to be my volunteer, and so I am going to invite you to just close your eyes with me, if you will, and let's just tune in. And I'm going to say a blessing here just to make this a holy experience for all of us. And so, everyone who's listening, I invite you to take this moment to close your eyes, go into your heart, and just touch into your own desire to reclaim all the energy that's been invested in you feeling like a victim, feeling hurt, feeling regret and guilt and blame and shame, and your own desire to reclaim your energy, to be free of the past. So let's tap into how much we have invested in that, holding on to the past. So moving into a place of gratitude that we can let go of the past, we can let go of the meaning we've made of it, we can let go of attacking ourselves, blaming ourselves, shaming ourselves, and we're choosing to do that right now. We are choosing to set ourselves free and to bring benefit to anyone else who is feeling like a victim, because we do share the one mind. So let everyone have a healing everywhere. No one left out, because we are doing this right now. And in that place of willingness, I invite you to bring to mind something that has bothered you for a long time that you have regret about. If there's anything from the past that you have regret or guilt about, just think of one thing that's been there for a long time, noise in the background. Just bring it to mind briefly. Don't have to relive it. You just know what it is. And now bring to mind a second thing, something that feels like an old hurt that has not healed. An old hurt that has not healed. Just let it bubble up into your mind. Don't have to relive it. Just recognizing, yes, that's still there. And then one more thing, something that makes you feel anger. Some old thing that when you think about it, you feel angry, you feel annoyed and frustrated. Something that's old that when you think about it, just you feel some anger. So three things that you've brought to mind. And now let's just rise into a higher vibration of gratitude, because we are opening our heart in willingness right now to release the judgments, the opinions, the meaning we've made of it. And let's just open to that higher wisdom and ask the question, how much of my life energy that I have to live this day and every day, what percentage of that energy is being used to hold on to these three memories, these three upsets, just these three? How much of my life energy, what percentage is being invested in holding on to these, what is that percentage? So just trusting whatever number came. If a number didn't come, maybe it'll come later. And now just taking deep breaths here through the nose if possible, relaxing the belly, opening the heart. When I reclaim that energy, through doing the full forgiveness work, what would I like to put that energy into? What would I like to invest my energy in instead of holding on to those 3 memories that upset me? What would I like to invest my energy into instead of the upsets? Just getting clear. How would you prefer to invest that energy? Healing the body, having better relationships, creativity, being more playful, more fun, more spontaneous, having more friends. Opening to more financial flow, welcoming prosperity and abundance. What would you like to do with that energy instead of managing and coping with the memories? And now let's ask one more question here, and that is there anything else for me to know about releasing the meaning I made of the past? Is there anything else for me to know about releasing the meaning I made of these past experiences? Any other benefits for me to recognize that I could enjoy? Anything else for me to know? Is it healing the body? Would I give myself permission to do something I've been putting off? What else? How else could I benefit from releasing the meaning I made of the past? And now I'm going to invite you to place your hands on your heart. And let's just be wholehearted in this moment. We're not just paying lip service here. This is our moment of cultivating that willingness to move out of managing and coping, feeling stuck, feeling afraid, feeling like we don't have what it takes. We're letting all of these ideas dissolve and resolve permanently back to whatever the root cause is in our consciousness and setting ourselves free. We're saying, yes, we're interested in being willing to let the past go and investing in the deep desires of our heart and sharing the benefits with everyone everywhere because we're one with them. Each one of us is a teacher. Everyone is always teaching the benefits of their choices. So moving into that willingness to set ourselves free, to give over the judgment, to allow it to dissolve, and let everyone else have a healing too. In gratitude, we let it be, and so it is. Amen. 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 So that is just a taste of getting an understanding of how much of our precious life force energy is being invested in things we can actually let go of.
Yeah, it was interesting because you didn't focus much on whatever the story was around, but really the energy that was frozen up in it and where it could be redirected. So it's a little bit more the opportunity rather than the actions.
Yeah, because we can get into those things of letting go of the specific judgments. But the most important thing is for people to really touch in their heart that willingness to, okay, as A Course in Miracles says, I'm going to go the other way. Instead of going into complaining and judging and feeling like a victim, I'm going to go the other way to the higher ground, to the higher vibration. But we can't really go to the higher ground until we release our attachment to the meaning we made of the past. And with most people, it's going to take a longer process, but this is just a taste of really getting a clear idea of just how much invested we have in the past. Because people often say, why is it so hard to let these things go? Well, it's because it's part of your identity. You've made it part of your identity. So most people are not willing to make an identity shift really fast unless they have the full release in their heart. It can't happen from an intellectual place. It has to happen from the heart. So what I'm doing here today is to support you in moving into your heart and giving yourself that gift, that permission to be willing to release the identification with, I'm the victim, I'm the innocent one, I'm the wounded one.
I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the impulse that we often have with something that's unreleased to try to get the other person to do something different, to say they're sorry, to admit culpability, things like that. Speak a little bit to sort of how to work with that impulse to try to get a specific something out of another person.
Oh, yeah, that is so strong, right? It is so strong. That's part of the victim mentality, is to get the victimizer to admit they were wrong, or to get the victimizer, in our opinion, to see how we feel, right? So when we're trying to manipulate that person or coerce that person to do that, we're still coming from that place of judgment and the meaning we made of it in the past. So we're just reinforcing it. I can tell you an example from my own life. So my mother died in 2008, and for the last many months of my mother's life, I was living with my parents, helping to care for her, helping my father to care for her. And as we were going into the winter and into the holidays and the darker time of year, we're on an island off the coast of Maine. And I started to get really triggered by my father. My father was very stressed out. And so he would get short with me. So, like, example, I'd say, hey, Dad, where are the light bulbs that go in that bathroom light fixture? And he'd say, oh, Stop interrupting me. I can't remember what I was doing now. He would get annoyed and frustrated at the smallest things. And so I was getting annoyed and triggered with him. And I felt like, oh my God, here I am. I'm a minister and I'm supposed to have love and compassion for everybody. And my father is going through the most stressful time in his whole life. He's watching his wife slowly die. His sweetheart of 50 years that he loves and adores is slipping away from him. And I'm losing my compassion for him. This is not okay. And then he and I got into it, and I just left the house and took the dog for a walk. And I went to this place that we walk, and I laid down in the snow on the ground, and I called all the saints and the angels and the company of heaven to help me let it go. I have to let this go. Whatever this is, I don't understand it. I've got to let it go. And what came clear in my mind was all the times when I was a girl and I would get into arguments, epic arguments with my dad. I would end in this total frustration, exhausted from arguing with my dad and feeling like a total loser, failure. I couldn't win the fight and I couldn't get him to understand. And every single one of those times I would end up thinking, I will never forget he did this to me. I will never forgive him for this. I will always remember this, always. And I will have my revenge. Those were the declarations I made throughout my childhood, through my teenager, and I had long forgotten them, But there they were getting triggered because now my dad was weak and I could get my revenge. Who would have thought that was still in my mind, but it was there. And so what I did was I basically said to all my inner children at all those different ages that made those declarations, I know what you want. You want perfect love with your father. That's all you ever wanted. Total love and compassion, total connection in love. And you cannot have that as long as you want revenge. You cannot have it as long as you're always going to remember and never forget what happened in the past. You have to be willing to say, that's over. It's not happening anymore. And the meaning I made of it, which was that I wasn't good enough, I have to release that because I can see now I was good enough. I was. That was the meaning I made of it, not the meaning he made of it, the meaning I made of it. And I've been carrying it all this time. And so I took all those vows, I collected them mentally, and I put them into the ground. And I was tears running into my ears, lying on the ground in the snow, in the woods, and the dog waiting for me patiently. I walked back to the house when I felt it was complete. Oh, that's so fun. I walked back to the house.
That was a sign of the release right there.
Right there. Yeah. So I love it. So I walked back to the house and my dad had totally changed his tune. And I said, and so had I. And I said, who wants to play Scrabble? And my father, who had never played Scrabble with me, was the first one to say, I will. Now, here's the thing. That night, before I went to bed, I said, I would like a sign. I prayed. I said, I would like a sign that my father has experienced the same healing I've experienced, and it's completely over. It's completely over. Total healing for both of us. I woke up the next morning. I went into the kitchen. My father was already there making coffee. I started making a cup of tea. And my father said, I just want you to know that the difficulty we've had is completely over. It is completely done. It's in the past. My father said that to me.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And that's the evidence of the one mind. See,
Hmm.
now part of why I had that experience and why others have had these kinds of experiences is because they are really, truly willing to give up the meaning they made of it. So
Hmm.
I had to be willing to see I am lovable. There is nothing wrong with me.
Hmm.
I had to give up that identification. And sometimes, that can take you months or a year. But you know what? If you've been hanging on to something for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, it's worth it.
What a great example. And Jennifer, you're just there's such deep insight in how you're approaching this and really getting to the core of it and understand it from the principle and practice of one mind, I think is so powerful too. So realize that taking responsibility is what's required to unlock our side of an equation, to sort of freeze it up, or to unfreeze it rather. And so you can move the energy again. And it's beautiful with the example with your father. Well, we could go into many different stories and dimensions, but I want to spend some time now talking about your upcoming program, since I think this is a really unique and powerful way for people to take all you've learned from decades and benefit from it and really experience this kind of liberation in their own lives. So Jennifer has agreed to teach this brand new program for Shift. We're very excited about it because we haven't done a forgiveness focused program before. And I really think Jennifer has the clear method and the inspiring examples to sort of to make it real in your life in a way that's really going to lead to true forgiveness. So the program is called Forgive and Be Free. Reframe your past and experience true forgiveness to activate healing and the miraculous. It's at the URL discovertrueforgiveness.com, discovertrueforgiveness.com. It's a 7-week program. There's no prerequisites for this at all. It's just really if your heart knows that you have things to forgive that would free you to move forward from. And so, Jennifer, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your intentions for this program, what people will come away with, then I'll read out the module title so you give us a preview what's coming in each.
So I have a very strong intention that people will set themselves free of their self-judgments, their complaints, and feeling like a victim, and reclaim that energy. And for people who feel like love isn't safe and relationships aren't possible for them, for people who feel depressed and angry about the past, that they can reclaim their loving heart and that they have tools that they can use to keep going and keep going and keep going and really truly set themselves free.
Great. Module 1 is called Release Resentment to Restore Your Energy and Activate True Healing.
Yeah, so one of the first things is we have to realize how much energy we really are putting into resentment. So we did a little bit of that today. But then to have specific processes to look at, why are we making that choice? What's underneath that? Because not one of us ever does anything that doesn't make sense to us at some level. We always feel that there is some good benefit for us to hold on to those resentments. And many times it's like this. We think if we're holding these resentments like fists in front of our face, that somehow people won't do it to us again. But what happens is we're holding on to it. We're thinking about it all the time. It's happening all the time in our mind, because that's where everything's happening really, is in our mind. So we're going to get deep into that to be able to let go of major resentments.
Module 2, Transform Regrets and Resentments to Reclaim Your Power.
Exactly. So now this is more experiential. We're going to have an extra long class. We're going to have a 2-hour module in module 2 so that we can get deep into the experiential and really let things go and understand how to use the tool I'm going to give you that day so you can use it again and again and again. And it's clear, and you'll feel the benefit in that class. You'll feel a healing in that class.
Module 3, Heal Your Relationships and Restore Love.
So one of my favorite things in my life is when people start doing this work with me, and they start maybe with my spouse and I are getting divorced, or I know we're heading towards separation and divorce, and I'd like to have as many tools as I could to be able to survive this impending divorce. And then through using the tools, their marriage gets rekindled and restored. And sometimes people even have, they separate and come back, or they have new marriage vows. They redo their marriage vows and things like that. I love when people feel like a relationship is beyond saving and they just want to run away from it, or they feel like they're in a cycle of real pain and suffering they can't get out of in a primary relationship with a parent, a child, a spouse, a co-worker, a boss, things like that. To be able to have clear forgiveness tools that, because there is one mind, will actually transform both people in the relationship. And the great thing is, the other person doesn't have to do anything. Like with my dad didn't do anything. I did it.
Great story again. Module 4, release old traumas and hurt to restore your vitality.
Well, one of the things that people start to realize as they're doing this work is that they start to feel lighter. They start to feel a renewal, and they do start to have more vitality because they're beginning to see how much of their life energy they've been investing in holding on to the meaning they made of the past, the regrets and the hurts and the wounds. And as the wounds begin to heal, and sometimes heal instantly, it's amazing how much more energy people have. So I like to give people extra tools of ways of looking at how they can do that and reclaim their inner joie de vivre.
Module 5, heal your body with the power of true forgiveness.
So one of the most exciting benefits for a lot of people is when their body heals. Now, of course, I can't promise healing in the body or anything. I can't promise anything because I can't get inside your mind and do your work for you. But for many people who are willing to do this work, I do see extraordinary body healing. So people with arthritis, people who have illnesses that have been lingering, sometimes the healing comes that, oh, all of a sudden now they see, oh, this modality of healing is going to help me, or that they find their way to some supplement that they never thought of before. Miraculous things like that show up in form, but very often things spontaneously heal. Do I have time to tell a 1-minute story?
Sure.
So I had a student who had chronic pain. She was a nurse, a registered nurse. She had a nursing business, and she lived in Louisiana. Sheila's her name, and she had this chronic pain for years in her neck. And living in Louisiana some years ago, there were terrible flooding that wiped out her home, her business, because the whole building, everything went. Almost every member of her family and all of her friends lost their homes and their businesses. It was just a tragedy for everybody. It was really horrible. And she started practicing this deep forgiveness work through the aftermath, all the stuff with FEMA and the insurance company and the mortgage company and all the people around her complaining and whining and moaning and everybody feeling like a victim. She kept doing this forgiveness work. And a few months later, she told me, I just realized my chronic pain that I've had for 3.5 years has completely healed.
Truly amazing.
It is amazing.
Well, let's continue. So module 6 then goes into improve your mental and emotional health.
Yeah, well, so that's it. We don't realize how much we've got going on, cluttering up our mind. And look, one of the things that I've come to see is that in this world, like attracts like everywhere, all the time. So if I'm harboring thoughts of resentment, I'm going to attract more of those kinds of thoughts. And I'm going to attract people who also have resentment or who are going to help me have even more resentments because that's what I seem to be interested in. So when we do this work at the level of the mind and the heart, doing this healing, then it frees up our mind to focus on so many other things, so many beautiful things that we'd like to be putting our attention in. So this is especially helpful for people who feel burdened at work and who can't focus well in their work, who are looking to be more inspired in their creativity, in their life, in their business, in their finances, and be attracting more beautiful things into their life. Because we do share one mind. Everybody knows if you feel guilty and ashamed. Everybody knows if you are harboring anger and you blame other people for how you feel. So unless they are going to help you increase that, or help you dissolve that, they're going to avoid you. So many people, particularly spiritual practitioners who are, like, let's say an acupuncturist who doesn't seem to have enough clients, or a coach, right? A personal coach, a life coach who doesn't seem to have enough clients, can't seem to figure out how to get enough clients. Oftentimes it's really because their mind is cluttered with all these other things, and their clients, being of the one mind, they know that is not the best practitioner for me.
Really great point. Module 7 then goes into keep the miracles and healing flowing.
Yes. So it's very important to me that people feel empowered to keep going with this work, because we've all taken classes that we never really followed through on. We've all done stuff where we got the tools, but we never really put them into practice. So it's extremely important to me that people are able to feel comfortable and confident going forth using these tools to change every aspect of their life.
Well, what a great program. And I think you're such an awesome teacher as well. So this is going to be a really beautiful opportunity for people to release profound, deep, lifelong patterns, issues, traumas that really are holding us back. So again, the whole program is laid out in detail at discovertrueforgiveness.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Jennifer, which is going to include time to do interactive exercises together, also ask your questions live. You also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, which is really helpful to go back and study and relearn key pieces. There'll be word-for-word transcripts, weekly exercises for home, a Facebook community to deepen your sense of connection to other participants, as well as small group time to discuss after each call. In addition, there's some really robust extra bonuses that Jennifer's been really gracious in offering. First, everyone who signs up is going to receive a self-forgiveness meditation from Jennifer. This is a great tool you can use for years to come. Jennifer's also offered a full deep dive workshop. This is a live online workshop. You want to share more about that special bonus?
Yes, so I do a 2.5 hour live workshop on Zoom every month with a different topic. So again, people can choose which topic they would like, and they can pick that one whenever it's convenient for them.
And then there's a special bonus for anybody who signs up by midnight tonight. You will receive 3 months of live online group counseling. This is a weekly 1-hour meeting on Zoom that's just personalized group coaching. You want to share a little bit about that group coaching you do?
Yes, this is a program I've been doing for many years, and it's a great opportunity to ask personal questions and get specific answers. And it's interesting how many times there seems to be a theme each week. And so people of a theme ask similar related questions. And we go very deep. It's very helpful. And it's a very loving group of people that show up to ask questions of me. And I take any question people have. And one of the great things is people can sign up for their month of coaching whenever it works for their schedule.
Great, super
So
generous. So this is encouragement for you to really take the time now to read through the page at discovertrueforgiveness.com. Tune in with your own heart and really feel if this is the right next step for you. And if you do get the sense to move forward today, you're going to get 3 months of that live online group counseling. Super valuable. So we've kept the investment for this program very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128. You save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start on December 3rd, and which is perfect timing for the holidays. Holidays often stir up all the unresolved work in the family that needs to be addressed. And so it's a great time to be doing this through the holiday season. And it's going to run Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings and the transcripts in the community. I also just want to call out there are a lot of great testimonials on the information page at discovertrueforgiveness.com. Really clear how many lives have been benefited by taking in what Jennifer's teaching and applying it in a way that just really frees people to move on to a new higher octave of life. So you're in really good hands, and I know you're going to experience a lot of liberation and healing if you choose to move forward. So again, it's all at discovertrueforgiveness.com. So Jennifer, we're nearing the end of our time together. Anything that's still on your heart that you want to share with folks who are considering going deeper into the work of true forgiveness with you?
Well, the opportunity, like you said, before the end of the year, holiday, Christmas, and New Year's, and then we're going to pick up the rest of the class in January. So you get to rock it into your new year. But any time of year is a good time to do this work and set yourself free. I hope you'll join me. This is my passion, and I love sharing this. I love being able to support you in having a miraculous life.
Well, thank you for that generosity of spirit. And it's really clear that you have taken all those lessons from growing up and turned them into a remarkable gift to humanity. So thank you for all you do and all you are. And thank you all for joining as well. And if you'd like to go further into forgive and be free, you can do so at discovertrueforgiveness.com, and you'll get those 3 months of support if you choose to move forward today. So thank you so much. Many blessings.